You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Welcome into the latest and greatest episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. Tyler Mon, Sam Dykstra in New York City, back from Atlanta, a jam-packed. We're actually both back from Atlanta. I'm also recently back from Bellingham, Washington. We had a baseball-packed week. What's going on, dude?
Yeah, I mean, a lot feels like it's going on. My inclination was to say not much, but that is not true
not
in
much,
the slightest.
But that's a lie.
That is a lie. We were recording on Friday this week just because it has been such a packed week. I mean, we were both in Atlanta. You were in Bellingham, Washington for the West Coast League All-Star Game. Well, let's just start off with that. How was that?
It was fun. A win for the North Division, much like last year. Unlike last year, there was not a dramatic walk-off, and there was no Sam Dykstra this time around, which I was bummed about. But Ryan Roland Smith and I got to, nerd out the way we do during baseball broadcasts. We had a whole bunch of fun. Big thanks to Rob Nyer in the West Coast League. A lot of really exciting prospect talent. Guys who are headed to draft and prospect status probably as of next year. There were 8 players in the league who were drafted this year. The only one who played in the game this week was Dominic Cadiz, who's a 15th round pick of the Brewers, currently plays at UCLA. But there was a lot of talent. One guy to keep an eye on is Brock Sell, who is a high school outfielder who is headed to college at Stanford coming up next year, or I guess this year. I mean, he'll play baseball to start his collegiate career next year. But yeah, a lot of really good talent on display. We saw some impressive arms. It was fun. It's the West Coast League is kind of the outside of the Northeast, and anything east of the Mississippi. The West Coast League is certainly the premier collegiate summer league in the western half of the United States, and it was so much fun to get a chance to be back out there in beautiful Bellingham. I've only been there twice, and I'm like, oh, I would live here in a heartbeat. Bellingham's amazing, man. Did not repeat our trip for breakfast to the cool diner that we went to because I couldn't do it without you. But man, it was fun. It was fun. And that was, yeah. So I was down in Atlanta, had Home Run Derby X on Saturday. Big congrats to the Washington Nationals representatives for moving on to Salt Lake City in the finals coming up in September. But yeah, we had Home Run Derby X on Sunday. I flew home Monday. Tuesday, flew to Washington. Wednesday, did a broadcast. Yesterday, flew home. And you were down in Atlanta covering anything and everything as it pertained to All-Star Week. And yeah, I mean, talk about a jam-packed weekend. There is like nothing on the calendar like All-Star Week, especially if you get a chance to go to multiple events.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I know I'm not breaking any news here by saying like the All-Star Game is like baseball heaven, but it really is. It's kind of incredible just walking around the facilities there in Atlanta around Truist Park, or just walking around town and seeing how many different baseball jerseys there were. I mean, you could see one for every single team. I saw a lot of minor league baseball gear, a lot of it being Braves.
Dude, getting off the plane at the airport in Atlanta, I saw like 4 or 5 people in minor league baseball stuff. I saw a little kid in a Rocket City Trash Pandas shirt. I saw a guy in a Gwinnett Stripers hat within like the first 10 feet after I walked into the terminal. It was very cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much fun to be there and be at the event, and I was glad I was there. I mean, I've been covering the Futures game for a decade plus now, but I've been to a few of them before, but this one was more extended in that the Futures game is on Saturday. Before that, I covered the high school home run derby, which happened at Truist Park. Bo Peterson ended up beating Grady Emerson, 2 of the top prep picks in the 2026 draft, or 2 of the best prep prospects, both of which are Texas commits. And Bo Peterson said later, if they both go to the Longhorns, they plan on being roommates. We'll see if that works. So like Grady Emerson is trending towards a top 5 pick. Peterson might be a first
Yeah.
rounder. I don't think any of them are making it to school based off their current trajectories, but still, so they competed in the semifinals on Saturday. The finals were during the home run derby itself on Monday. They happened kind of during a commercial break. They only got 1 minute to hit, and Peterson won 9-8. And that's they're using metal bats. I get it, but
Yeah.
like
But
they were
still.
coming off the first round. Matt Olson had just hit, who was this hometown hero, Braves. Everybody around was giving him a standing ovation, and now you're just high schoolers who have to hit in front of 40 to 50,000 people. So the fact that they performed, and this isn't a huge slight against Jazz Chisholm, but they didn't pull a Jazz Chisholm Jr., who said later he didn't want to affect his swing, so I get it. But they were absolutely swinging for the fences. So that was fun to witness. But that was the semifinals of that were before the Futures game on Saturday. Then we had the Futures game. We'll talk about that in a bit. The draft started on Sunday with rounds 1 through 3. Then on Monday, it was rounds 4 through 20. There was no day 3 of the draft. So just to burn through the rest of the process in one day was fascinating, and to see how that goes. And it didn't feel like that much of a change. It just kind of felt like we were continuing the momentum. But then to go from that to the home run derby Monday night, Tuesday's the All-Star game itself. We were doing a lot of wrap-up coverage for Pipeline on Tuesday. It was a whirlwind couple of days, that's for sure.
And with that, the second half of the major league season and the minor league season is nearly here. Well, it's here. We're recording as of Friday. But all right, Sam, we're going to do sort of a three strikes throwback, retro the show before the show episode. Probably won't be as long as our regular episodes, but there's so much to talk about this week. Let's go to the Futures game. The 2025 Futures game ended in a 4-2 win for the National League. The most valuable player was Josue DePaula of the Dodgers, who I wanted to draft before realizing that Sam had already drafted in our Futures game draft. But Owen Casey, one of my guys, good day offensively. Durangelo Senja was the first and only hurler in Futures game history to record outs, both right-handed and left-handed. It was a really, really fun game. What was the Futures game experience like for you, and the biggest headlines you took away?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it was 7 innings, again, always just compounds everything. We only get to see so much of these guys. And there are some players like Trey Savage, for example, who I think threw 4 pitches, he got a strikeout, and then he was pulled. And was a little confused about that. So it was packing a lot into a little event. And kind of in that way, and I've talked about this and I wrote about this in some other places, I almost got as much out of batting practice as I did the game itself. Getting to watch these guys in a controlled environment, but they're trying to show off in front of scouts, in front of other top 100 prospects, just how good they can be, what their raw skills are. So getting to see Connor Griffin, the Pirates' first round pick last year, who entered pro ball as a tremendous power speed type, but had some questions about what his hit tool would be. And his swing was like controlled violence. It was it looked like he was giving it his all every time, and it was still not overly swinging. He wasn't trying too hard either. That was really something to see. Carter Jensen of the Kansas City Royals, who got promoted to AAA Omaha a few weeks ago and has really turned on of late with his power, hit 10 home runs. I mean, I didn't know this about Atlanta going in, but anybody who had a left-handed swing was just aiming for the chop house in right field. And balls were just flying that way. I mean, it made for like a natural target, but he was crushing balls that way. And he told Annie Rogers later, a Royals writer who was on site, she asked him, what were you trying to do there? And he said, well, Fred McGriff, I think, was the hitting coach for the American League, and was asking him, do you have power? And he's like, yeah, I've got power. So when you're trying to show off in front of Fred McGriff, that gives you a little boost of inspiration. Kind of playing off that, earlier in the round when the NL was hitting, Jesus Made, and everybody knows Jesus Made is my guy. He's the youngest guy who was at the Futures game this year at 18 years old. He's a switch hitter. Stepped into the cage, and I noticed Andrew Jones and Chipper Jones, who Chipper Jones was the manager of the NL side. I think Andrew Jones was the hitting coach. They stood on opposite sides of the cage, and he took 2 swings, and they just looked at each other and silently nodded.
That's
as if
cool.
This is the guy we came here to see, and this is matching our expectations. And we should also highlight, Jesus Made, switch hitter, Chipper Jones switch hitter. Like he's going to take a keen eye to anybody who is choosing to switch hit that earlier in their career. They both seemed incredibly impressed by him. Didn't have like a standout game of some of these other names, but I kind of just took note of that. He went 1 for 3 in it with a strikeout. And then Josue Briseño of the Detroit Tigers, last year's Triple Crown winner in the Arizona Fall League, just moving up to Double A Erie, alongside Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal, two of the other top prospects in the Tiger system. I knew he had a good hit tool and a good power tool. I'd seen it in the Arizona Fall League last year. He looked exactly the same. I mean, like in a good way. Like it was, again, just take an aim right center, down the line and right. Anything he could do to just lift and pull the ball in the air. It was exceptional. It was exactly what I was expecting out of Josue Briseño. And then he hit a triple during the game, which he's not exactly the most fleet of foot player, but he hit it hard enough to get that triple. So then the game started. And just, you mentioned some of the standouts. Josue DePaula winning MVP because he hit the game's only home run. Came off Noah Schultz, another guy who was in our draft. I think I took Noah Schultz, so it's one of my guys homering off one of my other guys. But DePaula talked about it later. He got 2 sliders from Noah Schultz and was like, okay, I swung through one. He's going to keep coming back with it. And he did. And he left one hanging, and DePaula just punished it to right center over 400 feet. It was the hardest hit ball of the afternoon at 108.5 miles an hour. Owen Casey, somebody whose name is going to come up a lot in trade talks. The Cubs obviously going for it this year, trying to hold off the Brewers in the NL Central and trying to beat the Dodgers to a National League pennant. Owen Casey's blocked in the outfield right now, and he's already got, I think, 200 games of AAA experience. So put him on this big stage. What do we know about him is that he can hit the ball incredibly hard. He did that. He had the second highest exit velocity of the day at 106 miles an hour. He had a double to left center, or to left field, I should say, the opposite way. And then he walked twice. So he wasn't going to like try to do too much there. He showed good plate discipline against a couple of good arms. So he showed out. JJ Weatherhold of the Cardinals, who ended up being your last pick, Tyler, last week. You couldn't get DePaula, so you got JJ Weatherhold.
So I got JJ Weatherhold.
That was
Fantastic
a smart selection by you.
Fantastic pick. You know, we try to do our homework in the war room, you know?
Well, that was a good one. JJ Weatherhold, the only player on the day who had 2 exit velocities above 100 miles an hour, one of which was a double to left center, again, going the opposite field. And the ball just kept carrying and carrying and carrying until it got to the base of the wall. That was really impressive from him. Both of his batted balls were above 360 feet as well. So somebody who we thought, like, coming into the day had a good, or 2 of his 3, I should say, 2 of his 3 batted balls were 360 plus feet. We knew about the hit tool. Like, the power has been pretty good this year. Not exactly stellar, but like still solid enough. So for him to put some oomph behind it, he's knocking on the door of St. Louis in the second half. We'll see if that comes, because they have 2 good middle infielders with the Cardinals right now, between Mason Wynn and Brendan Donovan. Donovan, an all-star in his own right. But JJ Weatherhold certainly showed out. Some of the other pitchers who you mentioned, Senja, obviously him throwing from the right and left side was very cool to see on that type of stage. Only end up throwing 2 pitches from the left side, but it still counts. It's still switch pitching. He did that against Josue DePaula and gotten out on his second pitch, so that'll work. But it was kind of, for me, it was almost an example of like why he should be right-handed only, because he was up to 98.7 from the right side, and the left side he topped out at 92.9. So just a completely different pitcher. Like, it's good to get different looks and show guys different things, but like his ceiling is just so much higher from the right side. I would have him focus more on that. But still neat to see that. Jonah Tong had a good inning of work. Again, like, there's some pictures that came out of that. I think a lot of people got to see Jonah Tong for the first time. The comp that's always made with him is Tim Lincecum, and there was a picture that came out that was, his left foot firmly on the ground and his right foot, or right leg, I should say, like straight up.
Straight up in the air.
Straight up in the air. And he was touching 97 at times, up to as high as 97.4 miles an hour with that fastball that already has really good ride up in the zone. So we'll see if you can carry that. It's 1 inning, like I said. Like, there's going to be a lot of adrenaline pumping through these guys, and they're pitching in a major league stadium. You're going to want to hit the upper extreme of your velocity. But for him to do that in that game just asserts why he is one of the best right-handed pitching prospects in all of baseball right now. I think those are the major standouts for me in terms of guys who really like dominated in a way that J.R. Ritchie. I always like it when a pitcher gets the start in his future home ballpark. So he got 2 strikeouts in that first inning. Atlanta prospect pitching in Atlanta. You like to see that. His changeup really impressed me there as well. Connor Griffin, I mentioned him earlier in terms of his BP, did get hit on the right wrist, and everybody immediately feared the worst for his hamate. They mentioned this on the broadcast. I hadn't heard that because I was focused on my writing, but I went and checked with him later, and I was just like, I saw him like on his phone, so I'm like, "Hey, Connor, how's it going?" And he's just like, he stands up, shakes my hand, and I'm like, "All right, that was a firm grip. Your right hand seems okay." That's on the ground reporting, and I was just like, "How are you doing?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm good." I'm like, no, how are you doing? And he's like, no, I'm fine. He got x-rays after the game, was cleared. Big sigh of relief in Pittsburgh, because I think a lot of people were concerned that here's this guy who's already jumping up to high A in his first full year and doing really well there and is on an incredible trajectory. You would hate for that to come to an end, or like come to a halt anyway, because of the futures game. So good news there. Overall, well-played game. NL won 4-2. Yeah, overall, just another fun time at the futures game.
All right, Sam, then we're going to move along to strike two, which is the 2025 Major League Baseball first-year player draft Sunday night, and a draft that came with some surprises. The Washington Nationals took a prep shortstop, number 1 overall, but he was the number 5 ranked prospect going into the draft. It's Eli Willits, the shortstop from Fort Cobb Broxton High School in Fort Cobb, Oklahoma. The third youngest player in history to be drafted first overall, the youngest since Ken Griffey Jr. in 1987. Not a bad comparison there. Eli Willits goes number 1 overall to the Washington Nationals. Maybe a big surprise at number 2 as well. We will see what the road ahead looks like for this guy, but a college right-hander from UC Santa Barbara. Tyler Bremner goes number 2 to the Los Angeles Angels. The Angels obviously have been so aggressive in how they have moved their guys through the system, especially first round top level draft picks, how they have moved them through the system, gotten to the big leagues very quickly. So Tyler Bremner was the number 18th ranked overall prospect in the draft going into to Sunday. He goes number 2 overall, which left Cade Anderson there for the Seattle Mariners to take. The LSU standout left-hander, the number 2 ranked prospect, goes 3rd overall to the Seattle Mariners. And man, you look at what the Mariners have done with collegiate pitching and how they have gotten those guys to the big leagues and gotten them to star at the big league level in recent years. This is a really good pick for the Seattle Mariners. Cade Anderson, of course, a College World Series champion in 2025, and a guy who was, front and center for that LSU team this year. The top-ranked overall talent in the draft falls to the Colorado Rockies at number 4. I don't know if you can say falls when you're the 4th overall pick, but Ethan Holiday goes to his father's former team. Stop me if you've heard that before. And the Stillwater High School product will go to a team that is dying for some prospect shine in that system right now. So Holiday ends up there. We'll run through the rest of the top 10. Liam Doyle, the left-handed pitcher from Tennessee. If you don't have a Tennessee arm in the top 5 or top 10 nowadays, it feels like a very strange draft. Liam Doyle, an absolute stud. The lefty goes to the St. Louis Cardinals at 5th overall. Seth Hernandez, a high school right-hander who is the 3rd-ranked talent, goes to the Pittsburgh Pirates at number 6. Iva Arquette from Oregon State, the number 6 prospect, goes to the Marlins at number 7. The shortstop from the Beavers. An Oregon State middle infielder going in the top 10. Big surprise there as well. JoJo Parker, the shortstop from Purvis High School in Mississippi, goes to the Toronto Blue Jays at number 8. He was ranked number 9. Steele Hall, another prep shortstop, which was one of the defining characteristics of this class. He goes to the Cincinnati Reds at number 9. He was the 12th ranked overall prospect. And yet another high school shortstop, Billy Carlson from Corona High School in California. One of 4 Corona High School draft picks, by the way, in 2025. He goes to the Chicago White Sox. Sam, we obviously will talk about the entirety of the draft, but your reactions to those top few picks. We had just wrapped up Home Run Derby X. We had the draft on our little post-event hangout, and I will say that when Tyler Bremner went up on the board, first when Eli Willits went up on the board as number 1 overall, there were some murmurs. When Tyler Bremner went up as number 2 overall, there were almost gasps at some of the surprises. But what'd you take away from the start of the draft, and especially what it meant for Cade Anderson and Ethan Holiday and even Liam Doyle to be able to go to those teams where they did it 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, I mean, first thing I want to do is just shout out Jim Callis and Jonathan Mayo, 2 of my teammates here at MLB Pipeline, who run our draft coverage. I mean, they do our top 250. They are very clued into who is going where and what the chances of certain players going where and what teams are looking for, what demographics, what they're chasing, all that stuff. And just to see them in motion over the weekend was so much fun. And earlier in the day, they were starting to hear whispers that Eli Willits could go to the Nationals as a deal. Obviously, there are bonus slot values that are attached to each pick. So the first overall pick this year is a little bit north of $11 million. Nobody really ever signs for full slot at first overall, but if you're talking to a Cade Anderson or an Ethan Holiday, and you think Eli Willits is really good and he's willing to take less money and you can spread that out to your other picks, there's some value there, right? They're quite literally value there. But also, to the Nationals' credit, and we talked about this a little bit last week, I was wondering what the directive was going to be from the front office or from the ownership group after firing Mike Rizzo. I thought maybe, they were going to go after somebody like Cade Anderson who could help out very quickly. But they go with Eli Willits, who they said afterwards they viewed as the best high school hitter in this draft. And there are scouts out there who think if Willits improves his power, he's, like you said, Tyler, only 17, and he's only going to be 17 until December still. So there's still time for him to add to that power. He could be the best overall player in this draft. So it feels like a surprise, but if you look at the profile, there's a lot to like there, and the Nationals are taking the long-term approach. We'll see what he ends up signing for. As of recording right now, they haven't announced that he has signed. It's going to happen. It's just, I'm sure they've got things to figure out, or they're working on timing of all that. We'll see exactly how much of a haircut he's going to get. I do think Bremner was the bigger surprise because the Angels were tied to college pitching basically throughout the process. And once Cade Anderson didn't go number 1, he's pretty much consensus, I would say, the best college pitcher in this draft. Somebody with a deep arsenal, obviously just helped LSU win the College World Series. So once he slipped, you would think okay, the Angels might go there. They had also been tied a lot to Liam Doyle in the process, maybe the most electric pitcher in this draft with that really good fastball, the velocity, the movement on it, just the way he pitches is electric. Instead, they go for Tyler Bremner, who early in the spring, going back to the winter, was considered the best college pitcher in this class, and then got off to a rough start. He's got a really good fastball, a really good changeup. It's the breaking ball that has some questions. To his credit, he got hot really late for UC Santa Barbara. So maybe this is one of those instances where a lot of scouts had changed their mind early and didn't change their mind back, and the Angels did. So it feels like a shock. If you had told me in January Tyler Bremner went second, I'd be like, okay, cool. Sure, makes sense. Now it feels like, the Angels, they've always had some interesting first-round picks. They always seem to stick to their guns, whatever they are. They're not going for consensus. They're going for what they believe either is the best pitcher for them, best pick for them, what have you. So maybe they think they can fix that breaking ball. Maybe they really saw something good down the stretch from Bremner. They go for him at 2. I think, as you were saying, Cade Anderson to the Mariners, Rockies taking Ethan Holiday, Liam Doyle going to the Cardinals, Seth Anderson going to the Pirates. Those are 4 picks in a row in which I feel like every draft room was doing cartwheels. Just Super excited that that
Yeah,
player got to them.
absolutely.
Cade Anderson going to the Mariners, like you said, this is an organization that is filled with pitching talent at the top level. And they've got some interesting guys. St. Joe, we talked about before, Ryan Sloan coming through the ranks. And to get somebody like Anderson, like we could be at a point this time next year where we're talking about the Mariners. How do they make room for Cade Anderson? They will. They'll find a way. You can never have too much pitching. We know that. But that just seems like such a good fit. Ethan Holiday, the biggest lock in the draft was if he didn't go number one overall, he was going number four to the Rockies. Obviously, such a great story going back to where his dad played. There was immediately a picture that I think the Rockies themselves posted of Matt Holliday in Denver on the field, holding Ethan in full Rockies regalia. But the Powers are going to play quickly. There are some questions of like, is he a shortstop long term? Is he going to have to move over to third base? I think that's probably what's going to end up happening. He has some questions about how he can catch up to velocity, but he's made some swing adjustments. His brother and his dad are going back to Oklahoma and constantly working in that barn that they built, which is basically its own hitting lab. And he has the resources to turn things around and catch up to velocity. So again, a long-term player there for the Rockies, but they get a potential superstar. And then Liam Doyle to the Cardinals. I really like that pick. I'm really interested to see what he can be. I was talking on St. Louis radio. They asked me like how soon could he come up. I think he could be a second half option next year in St. Louis. I think that fastball is going to dominate quickly. The splitter is really good. He's got a slider and a cutter too. So it's another deep arsenal. They're not up to the standard of the fastball, but I think that fastball, he could just blaze through starting at Springfield next year and be in Memphis by June. And then once that happens, the clock's ticking. Seth Hernandez to the Pirates, a much longer play. There are all sorts of stories of like, could this be the guy who breaks the streak of no high school righties going first overall? Doesn't end up happening. His changeup's really, really good. And when guys come up through the lower ranks, and he's probably going to start out at single A, they can dominate with that changeup just because younger batters have never seen a changeup that good. Normally, you don't have to throw one if you're coming out of high school or if you're coming out of the DR. Like, you don't need a changeup. You can just rely on a fastball, on a semi-decent breaking ball. When you have a changeup as good as Seth Hernandez's, he could blow through single A real quick. He has as good a ceiling as anybody in here. It's just the profile being a high school righty isn't as good as it's not as sure a thing as a high school shortstop or a college pitcher. So I think that's what kind of floated him here. But we've seen what the Pirates have done with pitching. Obviously, Paul Skeens is the classic example. But Bubba Chandler, he was a high school pick that they signed and have developed into a really good starting pitcher. Mitch Keller, even going further back, similar story. So the Pirates get even more pitching deep here. But I think that's a good thing. Again, you can't have too many arms. And if somebody like this is there for you, don't go chasing a bat because you might need a bat. Like, take the good pitcher and dream on a rotation of Skeens, Jared Jones, Seth Hernandez on down the line. Like, that's a pretty good dream to have in Pittsburgh.
So the 2025 MLB draft in the books. You can go, of course, look at all of our coverage at MLB.com at MLB.com/pipeline. And with that, strike three, it's sort of a potpourri for this week's episode of the show before the show. We return to the field, minor league baseball second halves kicking off and getting rolling here in 2025. But one headline story that may be the biggest headline of all. The Erie Moon Mammoths will take the field for the first time coming up this weekend. The John Oliver, not inspired, the John Oliver created, the Last Week Tonight with John Oliver built and branded Erie Moon Mammoths will take the field. I've been getting ads for them on Instagram to snag the hat. Haven't done it yet, but Erie, if you're tuned in and you feel like sending your old pals of the show before the show podcast some hats, Sam, it's a big weekend for baseball in Erie.
It is, and it's been really cool to hear how it's kind of captured the national attention, because this is stuff we talk about week to week. I mean, Ben is on vacation this week, so that's why he's not here with us to banter about this. But yeah, I mean, just this type of thing. It's funny to see it go on HBO where they're like, we're going to look into the local history and we're going to find something. We're going to make it into an identity. It's like, yes, every team does this every offseason. They go just as deep as John Oliver did. They come up with something just as silly, but people have hit on it. And minor league baseball, the whole point of promotion is for it to get attention, and is certainly doing that. We'll have a few people here from MLB.com who will be there. I believe Anthony Castrovince will be there. Jonathan Mayo will be there because he's a Western PA guy. It's not a very far drive for him to get up to Erie. Jason Ratliff, I believe, is making the trip up as well. So people want to see this thing in action, and it doesn't hurt. I'm not saying they did this on purpose. I think those guys deserve to be in AA, but we were talking before about McGonigal, Clark, Briseño getting to AA in time to wear Moon Mammoth jerseys. I mean, that's going to be
probably what the Tigers were thinking about.
I'm sure. Yeah. Not imagine that those guys were.
We got to get these guys there. They got to be wearing these Moon Mammoths unis.
Yeah. Not that they were essentially, I don't want to say wasting their time at high West Michigan, but they had nothing left to prove in the Midwest League. So it worked out really well that those guys will be there. Throw in Tyrone Lorenzo. I mean, that's just going to be a loaded Sea Wolves, Moon Mammoths, whatever lineup you want to call it, for weeks to come. So I'm really looking forward to that one. They're going up against Chesapeake, excuse me. I'm still stuck in 2024. Chesapeake, who will be wearing their Oyster Catchers uniforms. So it's another one that's caught national attention, maybe for another reason. But it'll be the perfect alternate identity game, which is what we love. Sometimes teams will bring their own alternate identity. You'll see Copa identities brought on the road. That doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does, and I love when it does, because then, especially in a game like this, I believe we're going to have it streaming for free on MLB.com, just to give it another layer of attention. But I'm sure lots of people will be tuning in just to see how John Oliver's dream came true in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Finally. All right, Sam, what other headline stuff you keeping an eye on as we return to, obviously this time of year, promotions, guys headed to new levels. We've touched on that a little bit, but what else is standing out to you as we resume the season?
Yeah, one more thing I'll throw out there. That's a game coming on Tuesday. We're renewing the MLB Pipeline Prospect Showcase game this upcoming Tuesday in Allentown, Pennsylvania, so the other end of the state. It's the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs going up against the Norfolk Tides. I will be at that game. I'll be on the broadcast. We're still figuring out some details exactly how I'm going to be on that broadcast. There's no lazy river in Allentown, so don't put in. I know.
Tarps on for Sam Dykstra for this.
Tarps on. Tarps fully on. I've learned my lesson. But we're going to have some fun stuff during the game, I think. That I'm really looking forward to being there. But it is a pretty prospect-loaded matchup. We're going to have at least 2 top 100 prospects playing in the game between Samuel Basayo on the Norfolk side and Justin Crawford on the Phillies side. Still awaiting word on who will be the starting pitcher for that game, but it could be Andrew Painter or Mick Abel, who are 2 top 100 prospects in their own right. And it's just a fascinating time to watch Phillies prospects, I think, because we always know the Phillies are pretty active at the deadline, and Dave Dombrowski is willing to trade away prospects if he thinks the right player is out there to be acquired and help a team get over the hump. He is not a prospect hugger in any way. So you can be a Phillies fan. You could be an Orioles fan. You could be a fan of another team that you might think tried to trade with the Phillies. I don't know. I'm not going to say any of these guys are on the block because that's unfair to them. I don't know exactly what the Phillies' plans are in terms of who they're willing to deal. I think it would take a pretty hefty trade for them to be willing to part with an Andrew Painter, because they've long talked about him being in their second half plans, but you never know. It's just an opportunity to do your own scouting. That game will be on MLB Network on Tuesday at 12 o'clock Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And it's just another great opportunity to showcase minor league baseball to a broader audience on MLB Network. It'll also be streaming on MLB.com if you don't have access to the network. But more minor league baseball on MLB Network is only a good thing.
Always a good thing. And man, that's all we got for you for this week's episode of the show before the show. A fun one, a brief one, but a fun one.
We're just playing the hits this week,
Exactly.
There's lots of news happening. We're going to get to the news.
We got to fire out all the good stuff.
Get it out there. There's so much going on that we actually have to get back to the stuff that's going on. So we're just doing a quick hitter this week, and we'll be back next week with Ben and more news and reports from Lehigh Valley, and who knows, we might be talking about some trades this time next week. Absolutely. So that'll do it for this week's episode of the show before the show. If you got any questions about what's coming up with the trade deadline, anything else, of course, you can get in touch, podcast@milb.com. And for Sam Dykstra, my name is Silent Ron, and we'll catch you next week.